Following the Democratic Party scandal in Nevada that we covered here, where establishment Dems took hundreds of thousands of dollars out of party bank accounts in anticipation of progressives taking over that party, which is exactly what ultimately happened. Bernie Sanders is now offering his support there. So Team Bernie sent out this email to Sanders supporters asking them to donate to that Nevada Democratic Party in order to, quote, build a Democratic Party that truly speaks to the pain of the working class.
So former senior advisor for the Sanders campaign, president and founder of Solidarity Strategies, and author of T.O. Bernie, a White House reporter for Politico, Gabby Orr. They also joined us now to discuss. Chuck, let me start with you. Obviously, since you were on the Sanders campaign, you did a lot of work in Nevada. I'm not sure if we got your reaction yet to this story. What do you make of the Sanders effort in order to try and refill some of those coffers? It's pretty crazy what's happening there.
It is, and it's really disappointing, to be honest with you. Now, look, I worked for Bernie Sanders. I'm a leftist. I'm a progressive. I'm all those things. But I've also been a Democrat since I was 18 years old and worked for Ann Richards. And I like to think of myself as a working class dirt road Democrat, because I just don't think there's enough of us out there talking truth to power about just working class issues that cut across lots of lines, right? Well, when you have democracy at work and the group that wins the election fair and square, and the other group just walks away when we are all Democrats, that's a problem for me, especially in a state where you're going to need to re-elect a very important senator and try to elect governors. It just really, really bothers me. Like, there should be some adults in the room that say, look, let's figure this out. We don't always agree on everything, but at the end of the day, we are Democrats. When the establishment Democrats walked away and transferred $400,000 in word on the street that I'm hearing in the consultant class is that all the Democratic work that would have been done through the states now going to be done through super PACs, and they're just going to eliminate working with the party. That's super disappointing for me, because we built something in Nevada with what Bernie had done with Latinos that they could be building off of to make sure that Catherine Cortez Masto is reelected and you elect a lot of other peoples. And I welcome them to do that. You should be taking the good work that all the different campaigns do and bring it together under one umbrella to actually elect Democrats statewide there. So I'm super, super disappointed in what's going on out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Gabby, this is a crazy story. So this progressive Sanders-aligned ticket wins all of the top offices in the Democratic Party. Every one of the staffers quits, but not before taking hundreds of thousands of dollars, shifting them out of the account. And oh, by the way, they awarded themselves severance on the way out, even though they quit. Like, that's not a thing. You don't get severance when you quit. As Chuck alludes to, all the consultants pulled their contracts as well, and then this is like the Reid machine is sort of setting up their own shadow party outside of the Democratic Party apparatus. What do you make of this whole dynamic and what it says about some of the underlying divisions that remain within the Democratic Party?
Well, I think if you're a Bernie Sanders supporter or you're somebody who's now part of the party infrastructure in Nevada, part of you is saying good riddance. These are exactly the type of politicians and leaders and consultant class, members who have created an opening for somebody like Senator Sanders to build that multiracial working class coalition in a state like Nevada. And the fact that they've reacted this way, I think really speaks to how difficult it is for establishment groups, establishment politicians in this country to acclimate to change and to welcome change and to realize that sometimes, they're not always correct. They don't understand the political moment as well as some others. And really, as somebody who spent, 5 years covering Donald Trump, I hate to make this comparison, but it reminds me of the GOP primary back in 2016. And before he was able to clinch the nomination, the lengths to which the Republican Party went to prevent him from getting the nomination because they saw him as an outsider and a threat to the establishment consensus and status quo.
I'm curious, Gabby, let me follow up on that, which is because you've been covering this fallout on the right, too. It does remind me also in a way of Trump being like, don't donate to these people, only donate to me. It's like really a war within both of these establishment wings over who gets control of the money. Why do you think that's so important?
Well, unfortunately, money in politics is the main lever of control and power. And I think, unfortunately, both, Trump realized that and Sanders realizes that, and how important it is to have control of the purse strings on in either party. And so that is why you're seeing these fundraising pleas. That is why the former president, went out a couple of weeks ago and encouraged his supporters to contribute to only his political groups and his leadership PAC. And that is definitely because of the realization that if you continue to fund these party groups and establishment groups, nothing's really going to change. And so I think that's why you're seeing this attempt on both sides of the aisle by progressive politicians and the populist right to really take control of the purse strings.
It's fascinating.
Chuck, it's so revealing for any number of reasons. First of all, the establishment-aligned ticket that ran against the Sanders people that ultimately won, they called themselves the Unity ticket, which is so ironic given that the minute they lose, they're like, we're taking our toys and we're going home. But also, we interviewed Jonathan Allen, Amy Parnes, who wrote this book, Lucky. We both read the book. You're in there a lot talking about, the Sanders campaign and what you were able to build, especially in the state of Nevada. And what comes out of that book, and they have people who directly say, look, we are establishment Democrats, and if Bernie Sanders wins the nomination, we don't know what we're going to do in a battle between him and Donald Trump. So it surely seems, and I think this Nevada story is another instance, like they would just be just as well losing as winning with a Sanders-aligned ticket. And I don't even really think it's ideological. It's about money and power, like Gabby was saying.
And that's true. And the thing that's the most disappointing of the points you bring up is that there were things that Bernie Sanders did and the campaign did that all Democrats could learn from. And I don't want to put myself in an elite class or above anybody else because there's things I learn from every day. But the one example that stands out to me while you're talking is I took what we had done. Keep in mind, keep in mind that that Bernie Sanders won 73% of the Latino vote in Nevada. That seems pretty impressive. Now, you also read headlines today how Democrats in November underperformed with Democrats because they didn't do what we've done. They didn't do what Latino activists on the ground across the nation say do. So why not come to me, our team, bring us in. We will share ideas. After the Bernie Sanders primary campaign, we were so blessed and lucky. We worked for 100 campaigns with my firm, but not a single one of them were a U.S. Senate candidate or a U.S. congressional candidate or a state party because all of those consultants are the same group of people. The 100 candidates I worked for was a Latino who was running for the city council in Austin for the very first time as a progressive woman of color who we got elected. We beat 3 men using the Bernie Sanders model of grassroots organizing, getting into the community, starting early, all the things that I outlined in Tio Bernie. I don't know everything about every election, but I've learned a lot and messed up a lot in 30 years. And I would love to help all the state parties, but we have to break this consultant establishment intermingling of everybody and open up for other folks to have a voice in the party. And what you're seeing is this frustration bubbling up in these stupid fights, this division, when we should all be figuring out what's the best idea that you got and what's the best idea you got. Let's all sit down at the table like adults and figure out who's got the best ideas.
Yeah, well said. All right, thank you guys. Really appreciate your analysis here.
Great to see you both.
All right, next on Rising, Washington Post economics reporter Jeff Stein discusses the Fed's latest projection on the unemployment rate. That's when Rising continues.